Meeting to order. So the school committee now may seek to convene open session and recess to executive session for discussion and or action regarding these items of business exempt from open meeting under Rhode Island General Law 4246-4 and a discussion, personnel, job performance of superintendent evaluation, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1, discussion action, personnel, job performance, contract renewal, executive assistant to the superintendent and school committee, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1, discussion action, West Kingston Elementary School investigation, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A8. Individuals have been notified, including their right to have any discussion held in open session. I'll entertain a motion to convene an executive session.
Make a motion to recess to executive session.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Meeting to order. It is 7:02. And the first order of business is pledge allegiance to the flag. Is that better? Okay, so first order, pledge allegiance to the flag. I'd like a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. There were no votes taken in executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to move item 6A from school committee business up to ahead of community comments.
Thank you. All right, so Mr. Lander. Mr. Shea,
Here.
Ms. Massanati,
Here.
Ms. Whitford, Ms. Brousseau, Mr. Estivo,
Here.
and me, I'm present. All right, so, okay, and you were making a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move item 6A from school committee business up to ahead of community comments.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion carries. So we will take up 6A. So that is a field trip for the girls hockey team.
Do you have any questions on that, or do you need me to go through it, or? Where are you? This Tom McCarthy, he's our girls co-op hockey coach. So just I'll explain our co-op hockey a little bit. We are co-opted with Prout, Narragansett, Charahoe, South Kingstown, 5, right? Did I just say 5? We've all co-opted girls hockey. We're trying to keep that alive in the state of Rhode Island. Seems like more and more teams are co-oping with a lot of different teams. As I said, we've co-opted with them. So Tom and his staff have put together, we're invited to a tournament out in Martha's Vineyard. The other 4 districts or schools, Prout not being a district, as you would know, have already okayed it. They didn't have to go to school committee. We do as part of ours. Tom knows that. So we're bringing it before you to get approval. I think you have it in your packet, the kind of the timeline and what's going to go on at the tournament. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Tom will answer them.
I'd like to make unless someone has a question, I'd like to make,
I actually have a question because I'm just curious. Did you have a 50C3 involved that's helping to fund the trip?
Yes, the boys hockey team and the girls hockey team are outside funded for the most part. We do fund some of the program equipment, or I should say uniforms, coaches' salaries, referee salaries, partial ice time. They raise money for ice time. The boys team raises money for ice time. And in this particular case, they raise money to go on this trip.
That's fabulous. I just think that's such a great thing to, for that, charitable organization to be involved. So thank you. Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a motion to approve item A, field trip, South Kingstown High School girls hockey team.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Go win.
So that's going to bring us to public comment. Before we start, I just want to take a moment and remember the people in Los Angeles and Ventura counties in California that are experiencing the wildfires. Our hearts and our well wishes go out to them and the brave firefighters battling those fires, and also to the school districts there that are struggling to keep their schools open in face of this disaster. Our thoughts are with you. Thank you. If we do have somebody that comes in late that would like to do public comment, we will have it at the end of the meeting. All right, thank you. So that will move us to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next is the superintendent report. Mr. Pedraza.
Good evening, everyone, members of the public, school committee, Assistant Superintendent Seeger. In tonight's items in my report, we will go through some personnel. We have enrollment. I do have some updates on the equity audit that is finally coming to fruition and rapidly approaching. I'd then like to go over the overarching discussions that we've had the past few weeks as we talked about our subcommittee composition. And then I have an update in terms of the district's partnership or taking advantage of the RIDE partnership with Khan Academy. So if we could go to the third slide, please. So we do have obviously some personnel actions forms. What I would remind the committee of is that this is our first, I believe our first meeting in this newer year, right? So we had not met until since before Christmas. So while there are significant, anytime we have personnel action, there are significant pieces in there, but this might look like a little bit more because of the duration that we've had between reports as well. So we have not had that opportunity. All of the positions where leaves have gone underway or resignations are currently underway, those positions are or have been posted to School Spring. There are certified subs and or outreach to agencies is occurring in those manners where that involves special education that we are working. Dr. Carson is working with the agencies to fill those vacancies in the absence of qualified individuals applying via School Spring. If there are no questions, I'll ask for the next slide, please. So we have the traditional enrollment tracker. So since our last meeting, Matunic has gained 6 students. Peacedale has remained the same. West Kingston has gained a student. The middle school has remained the same. South Kingstown South Kingstown High School has lost or seen 2 students exit. And so our overall district enrollment has increased overall. And I'm sorry, there's one more that we got from preschool. So we do have an increase from our last meeting of, so we are now at a current enrollment of 2,214 students. That does include 5 students who are tuitioned in from other communities. And I bring that up because there will be a discrepancy between that total number and the next slide presented to you in this enrollment update. Next slide, please. So here at the in that in-district residency, that second to last number. Obviously, if you add 5 to that, because those folks are coming from out of district, they are not included in this in-district enrollment report. Since these numbers were presented to you in this fashion at our last meeting for the first time, as such, consistent with the last slide, those numbers of enrollment numbers of out of district are from our last meeting in December, and that is the net change. There are no, yes, please.
This is just a clarifying question for myself. Um, the numbers on the slide in red, those are decreased numbers or increased numbers?
So the question is it the numbers on the side increases or decreases? They are increases if they do not have a negative sign next to them. So in the GED out of district, that has increased from our last meeting by 2. Our transition students is -2. So we have gone from 12 to 10.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other-
Can I just ask about the decrease in the transition
Yes.
students? Why would that happen mid-year? Is that someone opting out or?
That could be movement. They could be moving out of district. That could also be birth date in terms of aging out of the program and transitioning from a transition program potentially to Buddha or state services.
Right, so, okay, so the transition program is based strictly on birth date, not on like a academic year like we would for any other.
Correct. The transition is based off of IEP status and need for transition programming as well as age. Yes. So,
It's my understanding that those transition students are educated until their 21st birthday. Is that correct?
22nd now is the
22nd
interpretation of the law.
Thank you.
Dr. Carnes.
And these numbers that you present here do not include those 5 students that are coming from out of district.
That is correct.
includes only our own kiddos.
This is only our students this is what, in district. So it's the bottom in district residency is the
so
other
they-
part.
They live here.
They
got it.
they live here. They are currently attending schools here. All of the other students listed are students that reside in South Kingstown who are placed out of the district or whose needs demand that they are placed in other settings. But
Thank you
yet
very
we still
much.
have responsibility for. Okay. Next slide, please. So our equity audit is coming to town. They have been working. Westwind and Edmetric have been working. We've been continued to meet weekly. Edmetric is crunching all of the data, some of which I'll talk about in additional slides. But the in-person component, as much as can be done, will be occurring in the last week of January, where folks will be coming on in. I've worked not only with Westwind, but I would like to assure folks, Westwind, Edmetric, as well as local council, we're making sure. So we have schedules set up both for the adults and for students, which I'll get into. But I would also, it's been a pleasure to work with Westwind. They've been very responsive. And right now we are, the only other component that we are waiting on, but that we are assured we'll get, is that because there will be potentially opportunities for individuals from Westwind to meet individually with students with parent permission. We are making sure that we have all of the required background checks on those individuals. And so that is a step that has been taken and is currently underway. So for the full week that they are here, members of the team will go and visit all of our schools, facilitated by our administrators. There will be focus groups with the following groups: families, faculty and staff, and community. Some of those have been set up already. And in terms of families, And if there was a group that is missed, or if for some reason is determined to be underrepresented, West Wind has talked to me about the potential for we could do virtual if for some reason at the conclusion of this audit, something is coming up or data is pointing us in another direction, and yet there was not adequate voice or opportunity heard. We would not just be locked in. It wouldn't be, well, we were here for that week. Sorry, they would make additional opportunities. So those focus groups would be approximately 10 individuals in each focus group, about an hour. I do go into a little bit in terms of the interview schedule and timelines, but they're generally held as open-ended questioning sessions, much like the interviews. But that try and get to, in some cases, trying to put real experiences and people's experiences to the numbers, and vice versa. In terms of interviews, those interviews are slated to be one-on-one. In some cases, they will be two-on-one, because we are getting students and families, we are getting prior consent. And in addition to that prior consent to conduct that interview, there may be some recording. They will ask, but prior authorization will be asked for. Same thing in the focus group. If one person in the focus group says that they object to that, what they'll do is it will be 2-to-1, because then they'll bring in a note taker so that they do not have to rely on recordings if people are not comfortable. So interviews, one-on-one interviews, or potentially two-on-one interviews that will take place in our schools during the course of the school day. So in addition to these folks who have received, who have been contracted by the district, who have been BCI'd, this will be occurring in schools, in common locations around people that are known to the students. Additional interviews are slated for our building level administrators and the director of student services. Next slide, please. The interviews are not grilling sessions. They are not predetermined in terms of making, that there'll be ample opportunity to make sure that the same questions are asked to folks. But they are open-ended conversations so that they can remain fluid and take those lines of questionings to where the interviewee feels that it needs to go. And when they're, them telling about their experiences, where they take the interview process. It is not a tell us about this data, well, we have questions about this, tell us about that. So again, I've given an example there. This will take, for students who agree to be interviewed and whom we have prior authorization, each interview will take approximately 30 minutes out of the student's day. That's giving plenty of time for a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes of setup, introduction, to talk about the process with the students, about 15 minutes to do the questions that they want to ask, and then giving an additional 5 minutes for things that students may want to add that might not have come up in questions. And then, as I alluded to earlier, there will be recordings for West Wind for the purpose of ensuring that the accuracy of the interview responses, not for posting, not for any other, except for West Winds. And then again, they will have those releases in advance. Any questions regarding interviews or anything I've covered so far? Next slide, please. There has been a shift in the surveys. This is actually because of the robust amount of data that we have already at our fingertips in terms of survey works. So we're about to enter into survey, or actually we'll enter into the window that survey works could be administered. I won't get into our decisions about when that will happen, but survey fatigue in many cases can be real. Also redundancy, as well as many of our school improvement teams relying on survey works data, as well as lending not only credibility, but also our ability as a district to follow up on data points that are naturally going to reoccur. that we can track over time, that we are not going to a third party and saying, oh, well, now we've got to go and copy West Wind surveys and now issue a survey to see how progressing based on the equity audit. We can repeat this. We can set key performance indicators in the next strategic plan that aligns to our equity audit, that aligns to data that is there before. The one aspect in terms of surveys that we don't have in terms of parents, community, students, educators, faculty, and staff is that of alumni. And so that's where most of West Wind's efforts, that will be a unique survey. And that's going to, because we don't have too many naturally occurring alumni organizations, will take some work in terms of promulgating that and making sure we get to alumni and that we have access to those. We've talked about, so we will promulgate that via the district and school listservs. We'll, put out some press releases potentially. So how that will get shared out, we will look to our, boosters organizations, our local colleges, universities, employers, to get that out to our alumni. But that's really where we wanted West Wind's work to go into analyzing data that we have at our fingertips, as well as teaching our leaders or making sure that our goals moving forward are things that are in replicable practices moving forward so that it can be sustained, not only analyzed and we can take action on it, but we can then sustain that focus. Any questions on the equity audit?
I just, when are we expecting actual report again?
So my expectation right now would be at the end of February. If no further questions on the equity audit, I'd ask for the next slide, please. And my thanks to all members here for their yeoman's work of of many meetings over the past week or two to focus in on not only the community composition of our subcommittees and getting those up and running, as well as then going through and giving consideration to the unified rubric. The composition of the subcommittees is posted before you. I won't read to that. However, what I will discuss and make sure that the community, for those watching at home, is there is more than ample opportunity to become involved in one or more subcommittees. Each subcommittee has a different charge. However, each subcommittee is looking for community input. In terms of district actions that have been taken to be in alignment with our bylaws, as well as make sure that at our next meeting on the 28th, we can conduct public interviews. We have sent out via the listserv. Oh, actually, next slide, please. This is all listed there. We've held our composition meetings. We've outreach to our existing community members, letting them know ahead of time that this is not about them. This is about compliance with our bylaws, and they are welcome to reapply. We then crafted a press release going on out. We have promulgated across all of our listservs. We will continue to do that until probably the 25th, or excuse me, the 27th, to make sure, because as of right now, we do need to share widely for at least 2 weeks. We will be over that number when we meet on the 28th. And then depending on the number of community volunteers, we'll take a look at how many interviews and people's interest onto what committees they wish to serve before we schedule public interviews on the 28th. We will continue to put out those listserv announcements, as well as direct people to anybody who's watching who would like to put their name forward for consideration. You can also go to skschools.net, and on the school committee webpage, there is now a subpage for subcommittees that has the rubric, the questions, the link to let you know the interest, your contact information, and we will begin reviewing that towards the end of this week to let people to reach out to folks in order for preparations to occur on the 20th. Are there any questions or comments regarding subcommittees?
I don't have a question. I just have kind of a plea out to the community. I know folks may not be sitting in our seats in front of us, but I know they do watch us. And I just want to kind of offer up that being a member of our subcommittees is truly a great way to be involved and have an impact on the district. These subcommittees are pivotal to our work and really do influence what is brought to the school committee. And I just, prior to being on the school committee myself, I was involved with a couple subcommittees, wellness, accountability. And it really is, it's important work. And I know there are many members of our community who want to be engaged, but don't want to, have the full-time commitment of sitting up the table here and having the high pressure and having your life slightly altered for a bucket of time. But these subcommittees are they are truly, you do a lot of work, short period of time. It's not very time consuming in general, but it is quite impactful. So if there's anybody out there who's thinking maybe, but I don't want to do an interview, it doesn't sound as rigorous as it is. And it really is. We are welcoming, we're open. We want to hear from our community members. We want to engage with our community members. And the more people who come and sit at these subcommittees, it's just the more influence you have on the outputs of our district. So thank you.
And I just want to follow up on Kate's comments. I think it is a great way to get involved. I do want to point out it's not as rigorous as it may sound. I think he said the other way around. So I just want to make sure, make that clear. It's not as rigorous as it may sound. Also want to help direct the community to the page because it's not glaringly obvious from skschools.net. I just found it. It's skschools.net/our_district/school_committee/subcommittees. So maybe we could, I don't know if we can
So,
put that out there.
yep. So what we'll do is I'm gonna
Make that more
work
obvious.
with Eric and we'll put that as a news item so that it will be up on the main page and we can click to it. I was alluding to the drop-down menus. So,
Okay.
that
Yeah,
it's
it's
there.
just-
And the direct link was part of so if people are part of our listservs, the link will take them directly to that main page of any correspondence that's gone out from the district.
Perfect. Yeah, it just wasn't glaringly obvious in my
No,
few
thank
minutes. I went to go look for it on skschools.net. So I just want to make sure people were able to get to it and apply because we do want your voice and want your input into what we're discussing up here.
Thank you both very much. Next slide, please. And last but not least on my update for this meeting is an update on our new partnership with Khan Academy and Conmigo. The district, because we have to sign off, including my Principal McGarr, as well as Mr. Snow over there. We've reviewed the contracts, gone through the data sharing agreements. We've also taken a look at the data privacy components. However, so only South Kingstown High School is taking advantage of it because that is all that is open to. This is a grades 9 through 12 program. So it is not for lack of appetite or want to provide as many learning resources to all of our schools as possible, but this partnership is only geared towards our high school. What some elements that I'd like to highlight here and in conjunction with Dr. McGarr is that this is not, Khan Academy and this initiative is not just about test prep. It's not just about PSAT and SAT. That the resources that are available to students and teachers alike are Common Core aligned. They do lend themselves both for intervention activities as well as enrichment and exploration, as well as, reteaching activities. There is no cost at this time. I've learned to say that now, having gone through the pandemic where lots of stuff was free. We don't know what's going to happen to rides budget or our budget moving forward. But as of right now, this is an 18-month agreement that RIDE has already entered into. So this would not be subject to FY 26 budget. What the cost would be or will be at the conclusion of this agreement is still up in the air, and is not something that we're going to proceed and see if it's the right useful and productive tool for us. So it is an 18-month agreement at no cost to the district. The agreements have been vetted, looked into, as well as the privacy agreements. Professional development for our faculty and staff is going to be an ongoing endeavor. Fortunately, at high school, we do have that release time. You do have the department times, the release times on Fridays for people that I know the administration here is going to make opportunities available to folks, as well as then focusing in on making on activities that align directly with the school improvement plan. I'll be happy to look forward to giving future updates once we have students and teachers who have received their professional development and that students are regularly using it. That is not happening at this time, as we're just getting to the onboarding portion of it, but I did want to update the committee that we had in fact entered into that agreement. For communities that would like to learn more about what Rhode Island has purchased and what we are entering into, I've included the direct link designed for Rhode Island. The information is specific, not just about Khan Academy or Conmigo, that anybody could go out and purchase. This is specifically to what the state of Rhode Island is getting through the partnership with the Department of Education. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, do you see this as something that students will choose to use for additional learning? Is this something you expect a teacher will say, we'll build this into curriculum, they're going to direct everyone in the class is going to be directed to use this tool, or?
So I think that in terms of that, we need to show teachers what it can do and potentially how it could fulfill needs. So for some teachers, I could foresee it being a warm-up exercise. It could be an exit ticket. For others, it might be a station and a station rotation model. For others, it might be okay, we're going to engage, or if somebody has completed a portion. What I would also say is that this is an opportunity for also to try and make connections to all disciplines around the SAT and PSAT that our students need to take. So making sure that writing and mathematics is occurring throughout the curriculum, purposefully making those connections between seemingly, different subject matters. And I think really that ability to transfer those core skills that are seen and that are ultimately measured can occur, and students can have opportunities, and that it's not just math, ELA, and science who, although formally tested, have the responsibility for this, making sure our students have those skills. So I think we need to experience and become comfortable what it can do, as well as get to the level of comfort. What I do not foresee it doing is replacing people. I see this as a tool in the toolbox that our expert and highly qualified educators will be able to evaluate, and they will know best where it would fit in. In terms, I do not foresee or anticipate any sort of must-dos associated with this.
So this is a contract, so to speak, that's running 18 months. It was a decision made by RIDE to implement this into our 9 to 12.
To offer it to all districts.
So So when you say author it, you're saying that we don't have to do this as a district if we choose not to?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm concerned about it because we have a lot of programs. We have advanced placement. We have the honor society. We have a lot of enhanced learning in our district. And those are for students that don't need a lot, right? Those students learn easy, they're doing great. This concerns me when we're putting it into our district and I don't see it fitting. It's not a one size fits all, that's for sure.
It absolutely is not. And what I will do is I will make sure to have at a future meeting, a demonstration of what it can as well as cannot do. As well as showing how potentially it can differ, how by utilizing this technology, we are going to be able to offer some differentiation at a much more rapid rate, almost immediate rate. For example, if we were to have a sample SAT problem that has a certain text that is too difficult to then say, okay, take that, have the same question and recreate at a 9th grade level. Recreate using if it's, let's say it's using astronomy as an example, don't use, give me the same problem but not using astronomy, but using football as an example. And it will then differentiate based on the criteria that the teacher there, knowing the needs of their students, will be able to utilize this tool for. So it is not, we are not locked in, and one of the powers of this tool is ultimately to have resources that can be differentiated and that can be manipulated to not only meet what resonates with the student, but what level the student is currently operating on, so that if remediation needs to occur, so in mathematics, let's say they are using, it's a problem that's using exponents. And we could say, okay, break this problem down step by step without exponents and show students that, and it will do it immediately. Then show how exponents change that, use the same problem, but now add back in exponents and show the step by step. So I normally, if it were something much like Edgenuity or another's recorded, if it were just a recorded platform, I would share your concerns. However, the strength and the opportunity of what this is offering is the differentiation and the personalization. I don't like using that word, but that's the best one that comes to mind, because when prompted to use things that we know resonate with specific students, it will do that.
So I'm glad this is just a 18-month trial situation. I am curious, I have a couple questions / concerns. So my first question is, do you know what other districts have taken advantage of this, or?
I have not gotten a full accounting.
Okay, just that is, and that's just a matter of curiosity. I have concerns. I'm trying to keep an open mind when it comes to it. I have concerns. I work with AI within my company. I have concerns in general with Khan Academy, their partnership with ExxonMobil Foundation. So I have a variety of various concerns that are all my personal, and I try to separate, and I'm trying to keep an open mind with it. I am glad it's an 18-month period where it isn't like a bound contract. There's no cost to the district. I just want to maintain my concern and have folks kind of be cautious because we don't know the impact of infusing AI into our academics. I live the impact of infusing AI into my professional career. It's not my favorite part of what I do, but it is forced upon us because I do live in the tech world, and I do have to embrace it. But I proceed with caution. Being the first to implement something is not always the best. So that's all I'll kind of express. But as I said, keeping an open mind, I will happily be proven wrong. I would love it. Like I would love, because there's also this matter of like not really understanding what exactly it is as far as how it will be implemented. So
Sure.
I am fully open and would love to see an example of how it can work.
Absolutely. As someone, I'll say for myself, and as much as I would have a history of trying to be an early adopter, I've also learned from that as what, and always try to look or anticipate hidden costs. So I go in, especially in terms of the ed tech world and the selling and the data and giving, ultimately where information is currency, giving over information and essentially giving over the gold of technology to mine. I have those concerns and that in some cases, things that are fully ingrained in our educational landscape. So I went into that and I was, I'm pleasantly, when I went through these and saw the demonstrations and I'm seeing what it's there, as well as what it will not do. And the types of responses that students and those shortcuts of just give me the answer. I know you want the, so that level of trying to get to the worst case or the easiest answer where AI will be doing the work and not our students. I was happy and pleased and would not have gone in and supported our other administrators, need or want for this had those safeguards and guardrails not been up. Will there ever be enough in tech? I don't know, but again, I see it as being another, again, that the privacy safeguards are important to me. The fact that it's RIDE putting forward, again, even bring skepticism even there. But again, at the same time, this is certainly not, yeah, we're bringing in Chat GPT and we're giving you that we're launching AI and Anthropic for all of our students. This is so I'll make sure to get a presentation before this committee to show both what it is as well as what it isn't.
So much.
Thank you. Spruce.
Other side of the coin. I've used Khan Academy for a number of years in my classroom, both with my college students currently, and I used it when I was teaching high school. The AI feature was not there when I was teaching high school. We did have computers. We were not using tablets and a slate. But I always used it as a supplement. For example, a particular concept in an upper level, in any math class, but especially in the upper level math classes, if a student was having trouble with that concept, they might go to Khan Academy and find a video that would show a different example than I had shown in class. And in fact, in when I was teaching applied calculus at Bryant, the students would come to class and say, I went on Khan Academy last night and I found a really good video, and they would actually write on the whiteboard the link to that video, or send it to me so I could send it to the whole class on the definition of the derivative or the definition of the integral, or how to take the derivative of something. So it was not integral part of the classroom. As a teacher, I also found on Khan Academy, when the materials that I was given to teach from did not adequately deal with or support a particular concept, I could find information on Khan Academy that I could then, print and give to students or link to students via a PDF file. Using the Khan Academy, I didn't have a lot of interaction with the AI. I've begun to play with it a little bit, but not going into the classroom with it until I've played with it a lot. So that's just the other side of the coin for that.
I just wanted to ask about what are, we're going through this Khan Academy, having this available for high school students. What are we looking at as far as metrics for success, or how are we measuring success? Like, is it going, how do we know it's successful or not? And whether we want to, if we get to the end of the 18 months, who knows what Riot's going to do if that gets extended or not? How do we, how can we, where does that leave us as far as the ability to make a decision as to whether to keep it on board or not?
So I think because it's targeted into one school, we can rely on, or we'll look towards the teachers as well as the school improvement teams and the administrators in that. Additionally, because South Kingstown High School, we go above and beyond in terms of testing. We don't just rely on the state administration of the PSAT and SAT. We have multiple data points, and folks are using that now in terms of doing gap analysis. And so I would think my expectation is that as we're currently going through, so for example, I know the math department is taking a look at the last SATs, taking a look at the clusters of standards of where students did very well as where they didn't, and then doing targeted instruction to make sure that those are seeing. So we would have rates of growth for cohorts. And I would expect that the administration here is taking a look and seeing, are those rates of growth greater potentially with Conmigo and or Khan Academy? As well as pairing that or correlating that with potential usage and usage rates once we go through to see, is that rate of growth, one, is it being used? And two, what is the rate of growth in terms of some of those areas that have been identified as area of targeted instruction? Then what is the growth in that area?
So is there the ability, because you brought up something I think is important, for administrators to see how it's being used, at least in the aggregate? What kinds of things are the students asking, what areas are they being utilized in, and sort of go from the fact that it is being used, or maybe they're not, to seeing that improvement. So we're really a way to tie in the cause and effect.
So I can't speak, I don't have the definitive administrator reports and dashboards as to what's available. So I don't want to misspeak, but I can definitely make sure that that's included, that we have both the student, the teacher, as well as the administration side of what's made available to them.
So I would just like to say, I would definitely like to see a demonstration, and so we need to put that on a future agenda. Any other questions on anything for the superintendent? So I will entertain a motion to accept the superintendent report.
I'll make a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that will bring us to school committee business. We've already done A, so we will be at B, discussion action field trip for the High School Museum of Modern Art in New York City.
I'll make a motion to approve the field trip to the Museum of Modern Art.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I just want to say it sounds like a lot of fun. So I'm excited for the students.
Stuart wants to chaperone.
I know, it sounds like fun. So, well, thank you to Mrs. Saborio and everybody that's involved in planning this for the students. I think it's a great thing. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you. Right, next is item C, a discussion from the Office of Student Services update. So we will ask Dr. Carson. Come.
Thank you. Can you just go to the next slide? I'll just start by saying thank you all for having me here this evening. It feels like just yesterday that I was here thanking you for giving me the opportunity to be your Director of Student Services. And 4 months later, I have an update for you. There's a lot that's been done and a lot that still needs to be done here in the district.
Can I just give you a little
Yep.
tidbit with the microphone?
Get it-
You have to talk, right? It's
Into-
going to sound really loud in the
Oh,
room, but
okay.
they need to be able to hear. And if you turn your head, then no one will hear you. So you can pick it up and go like this.
Okay.
Just a pro tip.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully one I don't have to use all the time. Hate microphones. I also want to say thank you to my 3 coordinators, Erin Hayes, Jen Vance, and Martha McConnell for being here this evening. They've been a wonderful team. They're sitting in the corner. They don't want to speak. So go to the next slide, please. So beginning here in South Kingstown, once we got the schools up and running at the beginning of the year, I felt like I was here the first day, listening to everyone's convocation speeches. I had some goals for an entry plan here into the district. A couple of those was to develop an understanding of the district. This district's new to me. You've had a lot of turnover in your special education administration over the past couple of years. I have to count on fingers sometimes to get all those people straight, but it's been a lot of different people, and we can throw COVID into that. So I wanted to develop an understanding of the district going into classrooms. I had an opportunity this morning to work with some or watch some related service folks work with some of our preschool kids. I'm glad my son is 28, just saying. To review the current practices of the Student Service Office, learning what worked, what doesn't work, talking with staff, meeting with the different groups of folks, and to provide recommendations to the superintendent on the status and the needs for the district. My 5 goal areas were to review those procedures at the Special Education Services Office, prepare for the 25-26 school year, because that's here before we know it. Look at staffing and programming. There's certainly been a large voice in the district to look at our programming and what we're offering for our students and where our needs lie for those students. To look at working with the district leadership and also looking at the needs of families and communities. Thank you. One of the things, just to give you a little idea of the district, is in December 1, 2024, we submit our state census, which looks at the number of students with IEPs and their disability categories. It's part of federal reporting for RIDE. We have currently reporting 404 students on IEPs. That's down from the June count of 417, although it feels like I've added a lot of new students moving in, but that influx certainly is still in that like 400 to 420 range. The most predominant disability category, I won't read them all, is learning disabled, with 110 of our students, so a quarter of our students with disabilities, and other health impaired at 94, which includes our students with attention deficit disorder. Next. I know I can't turn my head. I'm going to do that all the time now.
You can pick it up. Can I ask a question
Sure.
real quick about that snapshot? Do we, I'm assuming we have some of our students who are counted in multiple categories, or is this strictly they get kind of one?
In Rhode Island, you get one.
Oh.
So if we were in Massachusetts, you get a primary and a secondary disability, but in Rhode Island, we only report one disability category. So you could have a student with a learning disability who's also receiving services in the area of speech and language, for example, but we need to choose the most appropriate category where they're getting most of their service. So it would be a child with a learning disability.
So then can I ask there's 11 in multiple disabilities?
So Multi-handicapped students are students with the most significant disabilities. They typically will be students who may have cognitive impairments and also may have some physical challenges, or they may have they may be blind, they may be deaf. There's students with multiple disabilities. There are students who typically are on alternate assessment, which is alternate standards as opposed to the general curriculum.
Sorry, does this represent just the students who are in physically coming to school every day at a South Kingstown school, or some of these, does this include students who are at other facilities that we're sending elsewhere
Sure.
for services?
That would include all our students pre-K to 22 who are either in our schools or we are tuitioning them out. So our students who may be in outplaced schools like Bradley School, Meeting Street School are counted in these numbers. Just a quick snapshot of the current programs in the district, so you have an idea of what we have and where we may need to go. We have our AM and PM pre-K, full day, and walk-in preschool services. We currently have a push-in and pull-out resource model across our K-12 schools. We have co-taught classes in our K through 12 schools. We obviously provide related services in occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language, counseling, and adaptive PE. We have an AIM program for our children with social emotional challenges. We have programs K-12 for them. We have our Bridges program, which would be our students who are on alternate assessment, K-5, and they transition to a more life skills-based program, grades 6 through 12. And we have our Transition Academy, ages 18 to 22. And I will add a little plug that the 2 students that reduced our enrollment actually got full employment in our community. So I'm very excited about that. So that's why they exited out early. Parent satisfaction survey, the superintendent put out a brief survey. And I did look at that data briefly. 70% of our families with students with disability agree or strongly disagree, with the services and supports that their students are provided with for FAPE. We have 15% of our families who do disagree with that, so services and supports when provided for FAPE. It was really kind of a rough data points. It wasn't like it didn't take a deep dive into some reasonings or other pieces, but it does give us a snapshot of where we are in the area of special education. Next. Some of the major actions that my team has worked on and completed over the short 4 months. My office did a Medicaid review. Medicaid is one of our funding sources where we can recoup federal dollars for services that we provide under special education. I'm happy to announce that our last quarterly time study, 100% of our staff participated and completed that, which is not always the case when you look longitudinally at the data. We're also, and Ryan could probably speak to this a little more, we are over what our projected recoupment would be for this as of this date. So we are on projection to surpass the monies that we were able to recoup last year. The ride monitoring report that was completed before I started is in compliance. We have no further issues with the ride monitoring report. I've reviewed the current census, including our out-of-district placements, our Section 504 students, and our IEP students to look at those numbers and what trends we have there. I've reviewed current management of student records and paperwork. We have some work to do in making sure our paperwork is where it needs to be. We have a great Power School system for electronic records, but we still need those paper pieces of signatures and things like that. I met with the district attorney for ongoing outstanding litigation as part of my entry plan. In preparing for the next school year, I've been meeting with building administrators regarding student needs, staffing, and programming, addressing outstanding student issues as they arise, analyzing our budget and identifying unmet needs, both in our current budget and also our federal IDA and preschool grants, developing professional opportunities for staff, and addressing legal issues as they arise with due process, compliant, and mediation, many of which were happening prior to my starting. Looking at staffing and programs, we were able to hire a special ed coordinator of elementary. That happens to be Erin. That was a vacant position when I started. We confirmed all our out-of-district placements and placed students that were new to the district. We had about 5 students who came to us from outside of the district who were in need of specialized programming outside of the district. Again, I looked for current staffing and finding a current staffing list. I found that that was not available when I started, so assuring that I knew where our staff were and what they were doing. I have reviewed and visited current in-district programming. Currently, the superintendent and I are looking at and discussing ways to improve some of our programming, particularly at our high school when it comes into the area of reading. I provided principals and special education teachers with books on both co-teaching and specially designed instruction as kind of a little foundation and a Christmas gift for to start talking about our professional practice.
Sorry to interrupt it.
Yep.
The slide hasn't advanced.
Oh, I apologize. I moved and didn't tell them to. For leadership, participating in the central office meetings, ongoing communication with building administration regarding program planning and student needs, students' visits and scheduled individual staff evaluations, and weekly meetings with my special ed coordinators to review procedures and address needs across the district. I'm going to flip to next. I'm sorry. I continue to meet with parents and guardians as needed. I met with the outgoing special ed local advisory committee leadership. Both of the co-chairs stepped down in September of this year. And I'm currently looking for new leadership. If those of you who are listening from outside of this room are interested. We did have our first select meeting. Unfortunately, I could not attend due to a family emergency, but my coordinators and Mr. Seeger stepped in and they had some lovely conversations with community members and some ideas that I'll mention in this presentation. We talked about those select meetings and that engagement plan was created. Next, please. Priorities for the department. Some of the things that we're working on, our special ed coordinators are working on the facilitated IEPs. Facilitated IEPs is a RIDE initiative that is to help increase parent involvement, parent satisfaction, and really bring parent and student voice into the IEP process. Those of you who may have students who are in the IEP process, you'll see agendas and norms and a little different flavor to how we do our IEP meetings. I continue to need to look at programming and staffing to close the achievement gap for our students. I didn't do a slide on our test data because I know you folks have looked at that data in prior meetings, but really we need to look at that achievement gap for our students with disabilities. We have an early intervening plan as part of our RIDE monitoring. And part of that is to look at the equity audit and to also look at our programming across the district. I want to build trust with the community, and I want to make sure we have family voice by having a robust CLAC meeting. Next, please. I won't read this whole slide because I just actually talked to you a little bit about facilitated IEPs. It's certainly a way to promote positive collaboration that starts with shared responsibilities and understanding. The 3 coordinators, as I mentioned, have been trained in this process, and we're able to send 5 more IEP team members out to that process and be trained through Key to Ed, through the Rhode Island Department of Education. You can flip, thank you. Looking at staffing, the first piece I needed to do is look at our case load numbers. They vary across the district. They vary across the grade span. Looking at service units, our related service folks have caseloads that sometimes look like they're in the high side or sometimes look like they're on the low side, but really looking at those units of time that they're spending with students to provide those related services is going to be key as we look to making sure we have adequate numbers of related service staff. TA support has been an area that's been of concern within the district. We have students, particularly our younger students, who are coming to school with more behavioral challenges and SEL needs. And principals and staff have really talked about that need for TA support. And superintendent mentioned in his staffing, I've been doing a lot of work with agencies to provide staffing where we don't have anyone. The staffing crisis seems to continue. We just thought we hired a TA and the person turned the job down today after they were offered the position. So that seems to be a current trend for our district and districts across Rhode Island. Next, please. Program priorities. One of our priorities is looking at our preschool needs, looking at the models that we have, both half day and full day, looking at our itinerant model where we work with students who may be in our community daycare and our walk-in services to make sure we're adequately getting our youngest students off to a great start with school. We need to also look at appropriate programming for students who may have qualified for alternate assessment. I talked about that a little bit briefly, but no longer meet the new criteria. RIDE rolled out a new criteria this year for students with our most severe disabilities. And some of our students who we would have qualified in the past, given the criteria they gave us, no longer meet that criteria, but they are students who certainly need some of the life skills and other programming that their classrooms provided. And making sure we give them the support as we move them towards more general curriculum. We need to support our teachers in increasing their knowledge of high-level instructional practices to close the academic gaps in reading and math. I know we've looked at those test scores. I've looked at them across both our own district and I looked at our surrounding districts. We really need to look at those students who are non-responsive to interventions and see how we can use high-level practices and other teaching methodology to really increase their access to our core curriculum. We need to look at our students with disabilities with the changing graduation requirements. There are foreign language requirements now with the new graduation regulations through RIDE. Math regulations have changed. So we really need to look at that piece. And we also need to make sure that we're not missing the piece of our students who have struggled in basic skills, such as reading and mathematics. And then assuring that our students who are on the spectrum, our ASD students, are fully supported. Next, please. CLAC, as I mentioned, we're looking to build that leadership team. You can't have a special ed local advisory committee without those parents' input because I can't serve on that committee. It is an advisory committee to me. So I'm looking to build that leadership team. One of the suggestions that came up that we're going to be doing is suggesting a coffee hour to really kind of get out to our schools and meet with parents and families and answer questions and also look for participation in our advisory committee. We will continue with parent information sessions, even though we don't have an active LAC at this time. We've already have the transition college panel that will be coming on April 10th. The transition college panel is students with disabilities who are out in a 2 to 4 year university or college, and they talk about their experiences. So we're hoping we get a good turnout for that. Next, please. Moving forward, we obviously need to develop our FY26 budget to recommend to the superintendent. We need to look at our extended school year program for the summer of 2025. Need to continue to meet with out-of-district school providers to make sure that our students who are ready to return to our schools make that transition. We've identified at least 2 students to date who we are looking to bring back to district. Assist new and existing families with questions regarding special education programming. We know that programming differs from district to district and state to state, and making sure that our new and existing families are supported. Continue to work with my special ed coordinators and building administrators to continue to improve our current practices and procedures in special education. And again, recruiting those parent leaders for our special ed advisory committee. next. Just a little quote to end. I like quotes, so I tend to do them at the beginning and the end. But I want to thank you for this opportunity and entertain any questions. Yes.
I have a few. So I guess first, you had talked about the programs across the district. It
Mhm.
looks like we have a lot of different approaches. And is that typical? Would you like to see those consolidated, or is that, do we need all those different approaches? Because
Sure.
like the quote says.
I'd like to actually see them expanded to some extent. We have great push in and pull out services, but we are still missing a population of students who need more intensive supports. And that's the part we're kind of missing. We kind of go from students who may be getting a half an hour, 5 days a week, to students who may be in classrooms with teachers and a special educator. And we just need to look more at some of those more specialized programs for our students, particularly in the basic skill areas of reading and math. So this is not atypical of what we see, but research is beginning to point towards the need that beyond inclusion, we need to look at some of those other pieces for kids. And that might be very individualized, or it may be more program development.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then in the survey, I'm glad to see 70% of people are happy with services. I'm wondering if in the 15%, depending on how you did the survey, you might not be able to know if there's a concentration in a certain area. You listed, I think, 8 or 9 different disability categories. If you know if that dissatisfaction is concentrated in any of them, or is it just spread across different people? Or
We didn't go into that level of detail with the survey, the superintendent. We were more looking at district satisfaction. And survey works also would not go into that level of kind of detail by disability, but that may be something we want to look at moving forward in a needs assessment.
And then just my last question is about the facilitated IEPs.
Yes.
So we have 3 coordinators who are trained. Does that mean one of the 3 of them has to be at every IEP meeting?
They typically are at most of our IEP meetings. That's kind of their role, so that the principal has the ability to be at the meeting or attend to building issues. Sometimes I'm at the meeting. I've also been trained. I did leave that piece out. So it's not something that we are right now looking at full implementation. We're trying to just bring some of the smaller pieces like norms and an agenda and talking about our role as centered to the student to start. So and they actually have been talking with their staff in the buildings that they serve to talk about those pieces. So we have an agenda for everybody to use for those IEP meetings.
And maybe I have one more. So does that, is that
It's
ratio,
okay.
is that ratio, right? 3 coordinators to 400 students who need IEP meetings?
It's a lot.
Seems like 300 to 400 seems like. a
It
lot.
does. They may not be at every meeting. Some of our, like our preschool meetings, well, we have a preschool coordinator too, who's part-time and part assistant principal at Peacedale, who would take that portion of the IEPs. So
Thank you.
it is a lot.
That's all.
So, budget over here. Budget. Looks like you're looking at a lot of detail, and thank you for the work you've done already, just coming in and giving us this level of information based on your expertise and how you're approaching this. And I saw something about having to come to some understanding without putting you on the spot. If you were to bracket, say, in terms of dollars or numbers of people going forward, what's our gap?
That's a hard question to answer. I think
Estimate.
yeah, I do think that we do need some additional TA support to our specialized programs, so that they have some more dedicated, support in that area. If I had a wish list, and I know we have a budget that's, not going to, probably support all of that. I do think we need at least an elementary program to work with some of our, our students who are kind of don't fit into either of the programs that we really have, but need some intensive level of support. We certainly need a program, and I would definitely say that this would be my big bracket in the high school to support those students that are moving up from our middle school who still need intensive interventions in order to be successful and to make sure that they graduate from high school. So I would say that's my big need area. And then looking at kind of that kind of gap program at the elementary.
Thank
Mhm.
So I am glad to see that you want to bring the family voice, because as all of us parents know their children best. And having that coordination and that conversation and empowering the families to speak and be listened to is huge. So I'm glad to hear that. I have a curiosity question about the surveys of with the 70% of folks. What was was that like 70% of those who responded, or was that all, or was there a very high level of response rate, or was it everybody? It doesn't have to be an exact number. I'm just like getting a
So I
range.
can look into it. It was
Yeah.
the district-wide survey that, at the end of the first quarter that I alluded to, in previous meetings, but made sure to include a question so that we could change to pivot tables. And not only could I provide that information to building level principals about their school, but also to Dr. Carson. So in terms of what that end size would be, give me a minute.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
I just want to know, like, if it was 5 people versus if it was like 150 people. That's kind of, I'm looking at from that
It was
perspective.
definitely more than 5, but I know there's a sticky note on my desk somewhere with how many parents participated.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then the last thing that I will say is with the CLAC piece and that community connection and just stick to it-ness that you're going to need. As you stated, we've had a lot of change. It's been very disruptive. It's been very difficult. It's been difficult for us as the school committee to navigate it from our perspective. It's difficult for parents who have had to navigate it. It's been difficult for the teachers and the coordinators and everybody who comes in and tries to take the spot. So I just say, keep at it and eventually you'll build the trust. The worst thing that could happen is if we stop trying to engage and trying to build the trust, because that's just what's happened over the past 4 or 5 different folks who've been in that position. And it's going to take a little bit of grit,
Yes,
patience.
I would say
And,
grit.
Yeah. And so I just say, you know, you all know it's worth it. There's a handful of us who've been here for a very long period of time and we've been through the ups, downs, over and arounds, and just stick with it and it will get better. And as long as you just keep, stay the course. So I appreciate everything you've done so far and I look forward to continuing to see you all.
Thank you.
That N is 54. So about 13%, 14% of our.
So,
One other question. I'm interested in the students that got employed.
That got employed, yes.
So how was that coordinated? Was that through vocational services? Was that an outreach program? How was that done?
Our transition program has job coaches, and the job coaches work with the students out in the community. And typically our teacher in our transition program and ORS, so our Office of Rehabilitation Services, work together to work with an employer in order to get the student employed. So it's kind of a joint effort. Our students, we try to put in their area of interest out in the community. So, and then what happens is once they leave us, adult services such as ORS supports them in their community employment. So some students are very independent in their community employment, and some students have one-on-one support with them even after they leave us.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
thank you. I appreciate that you came to the podium tonight and you talked about the work that you have done just fine. The last couple of administrators that we had working in your position had a tendency to talk about they had to unpack all the data. I didn't think that was so. I thought with family engagement, the level of IEPs that were happening, the level of complaints that were given, that there was enough information to go right to the core root of what is going on. But understanding that data is important, right? I do understand that. But I thank you because that's not what you came here to say. You came here with a plan to move forward, to find ways to fill in the gap. The only thing that I didn't hear you say that I would love to hear you say is that you're going to work with our stakeholders in our community that are right at our fingertips right now, right? I think
Mhm.
that for me, that is like the only component that we are missing that can help fill those gaps. So I hope eventually when we continue to have you before us, giving us your updates on student services, that will be one of the things you tell us. But up to now, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Dr. Carson, I echo the thank yous of my colleagues here. It is very reassuring to me to know that I don't really have to worry about our student services for the first time in a number of years. I applaud you for the grit and determination that you have shown, and tell you from my personal perspective here as a school committee member, we have your back to continue, even if you are getting pushback.
Appreciate that.
I do have a question, or a couple of questions for you. Do our students, our middle school and high school students attend their own IEPs?
They do. And today, actually, we had an elementary student attend his IEP. It was so exciting. And he was very excited and he has made significant gains in his reading and math where we're really looking that he might not need our support anymore. So that was really exciting. And he was able to tell us what he liked and didn't like about his school programming, most of which he liked. Our middle and high school students do attend. And yeah, and I've seen lots of our students at their IEPs.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear, especially the elementary student. Are our high school students that have IEPs being transitioned, if possible, to 504s so they can carry those to college because colleges don't have IEPs?
They don't have IEPs, but at the college level, if a student does have an IEP, the college will then write a 504 for them. So we make sure that they have evaluations because a lot of the student support services at the college level want current evaluation. So sometimes our students may have not been evaluated towards the end of their high school career, just how their 3-year reevaluation was happening. So we make sure that they have the evaluations that they need, or that's what I want them to do, I guess I'll say. Talking as it's a definite. And then make sure that their IEP is up to date. Students also, when they leave us, have something, they leave with a packet of information with all their test scores from special education, their IEP, their accommodation needs that they can take with them to colleges or to ORS or whatever employment. So they do get a lot of paperwork when they leave to help support them as they move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'll just echo everyone's comments. I thank you for for the information and the comprehensive overview of the student services we have here in South Kingstown. And so thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are also so glad you're here. We are a district of many needs when it comes to our special ed programs, department. We are desperately in need of somebody with your high skill set. So I am very glad that you are here. We also need someone to build a consistent program with longevity. That is so important to us. So thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
So I just have a couple questions. So one of my children was, he had severe hearing and speech problems. He was born with a cleft palate, so it was very severe. And we were lucky. His speech pathologist that had specific training in dealing with cleft palate children was at Wakefield School, which was my son's school.
Mhm.
And so he got the services he needed by happenstance, because we had no way of taking that expert and matching it to the child's needs. Do we have a way of doing that today when we have somebody with a certain skill set and a child that needs that skill set? Because they didn't do it then. We just got lucky. And I don't want a child to get by on luck when we know we can do better.
That's one area that I did kind of, when looking and meeting with families and being at IEP meetings and talking with staff, is that we have our programs here, but those kids that might need something specialized, like a cleft palate, we don't always have the immediate personnel because we're not all trained in everything. For me, looking and moving forward, and superintendent and I were having some of these conversations, bringing in those experts and making sure we're getting appropriate evaluations and then appropriate trained personnel for those areas of need. It's not something that I've seen in the records a lot of. I'm glad that your child, had a happenstance, but we really don't want happenstance moving forward with our students. So we'll be looking at ways to improve that when our students come to us with some very specific and different needs that we may not have expertise in, either bringing it in or getting folks the support they need.
Thank you.
Mhm.
My last question is just, there's so many challenges. What have you found the most challenging thing that you have found in the 4 months that you've been here?
I think the most challenging piece that I found is that we do have, I think was mentioned earlier, kind of some very specific programs, but not a lot of programs, and working to think, I don't want to use the box word, but I'm going to say outside of the box, but not unpacking the box, but really looking at ways that we can meet students' needs within the confines of budget, contract, resources. That's what I have found to be the challenge, that we do have some kids right now that aren't fitting into the programs that we currently have, and how do we meet their needs as quickly as possible?
Thank you.
You're
I truly appreciate you being here tonight and your presentation and answering our questions. I'm just going to ask if anybody else has any follow-up questions.
Not really a question. I just wanted to specifically thank you for following up on the RIDE report, because I think sometimes we hear about that sort of information. It doesn't come back to us about how it was addressed. So it's been sort of outstanding for a while under different administration, and I'm glad it came back to close that loop.
Yep, we're good for 5 years.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to item number D, discussion action, capital improvement program. Mr. Kilpatrick.
Good evening.
Can I ask you a
Madam Chair.
question before you start?
No, I haven't even started. No, of course, go ahead.
did these numbers change
No,
from what
ma'am.
we?
That was the first thing I was going to say. Good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. You have before you the fiscal year 2025 and 26 capital improvement program for the school district as presented to the town council last week with 0 changes. So thank you for your question. However, one caveat as we go through this discussion here, and I do have my counterparts from technology, Mr. Doug Snow and Mr. Brian Mahoney here from facilities as well to amplify these projects as needed. But one caveat, the proposed amount of $1,142,000 is what I'll call the ceiling for next year. Essentially, that is the maximum we could hope to spend on our capital improvement program based on available funding. Before I present the budget to you next month for your approval, my expectation is based on our forecasts that this number will be smaller. And the priorities may change based on conversations I've already had with Mr. Snow and Mr. Mahoney. That's my only caveat as we start this discussion. So happy to answer your questions or call up the experts.
Anybody have any questions? Paula?
You said. Smaller.
Yes, yes. So $1,142,000 is a big ask. So this year we're spending $1,163,000, and that's funded 100% from our fund balance. I don't anticipate having that amount essentially to spend from fund balance next year. Again, as we communicated to the town council, the amount of fund balance that we have available as of right now, barring any other surplus from fiscal 25, is $2.8 million roughly. So if we were to apply $1.1 million, that's essentially almost cutting our fund balance in half. So, and we have to balance our technology needs and our facility needs. And then we also have to think about operations. So that's why my expectation is that that number will go down. This is best case scenario. You're welcome.
In theory, it's best case scenario,
In theory.
but in reality, it just speaks to the concern that we might not be investing our money into our buildings as the community would like us to, but we're investing our money into our students and learning and programs, which is our main charge. That said, it's a tricky balance that we have to navigate. And so I appreciate you sharing that, but also understand that while it is a good thing that it just means we're investing more money into our programs, but our buildings still need work. So we want to make sure we walk that line.
Totally agree. Yep. Thank you.
To kind of echo Kate's comments, I just want to make sure we're not kicking the can down the road on things that, we're deferring too much. I know it is a balance to strike, but we do need to make sure our facilities stay up to par with the existing facilities that we have with the middle school and the 3 elementaries and Hazard. So, that's my only comment. Just I know it's a tricky balance, but we do need to invest in our facilities as well.
I agree. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to say thank you for the presentation that you gave for the joint session of the town council and school committee. Great job. Also, thanks to Doug Snow and Brian Mahoney for being there and explaining everything so well. I thought it went really well. So great job, everybody. We do need to officially pass it so that we can let the town council know that they can now act on it. So if there's no further questions, I will entertain a motion on our CIP.
I will make a motion to approve the capital improvement program as presented tonight and in front of the town council.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
All right, next, so that will bring us to item E, discussion action review of school year
Yes, so I wanted to bring this before you. So RIDE has shared, obviously, and their recommended school calendar in that you will see that they do not have start or end dates by Rhode Island general law. We must end this the next every school year prior to the 1st of July. We also, when we do adopt a calendar, regardless of whether we need the days or not, we are required to adopt a 184-day calendar. And I wanted to make sure that before we go into into the creation of either one draft or multiple drafts, that people saw what RIDE was recommending. And I also wanted to point out that I believe that based off of the surveys that were sent out to both the community, faculty, and staff, that the top priorities of starting after Labor Day, preserving April vacation, as well as ending before Juneteenth, does seem feasible. Given this school year's calendar, there is no election day that we need to that we are losing. There are some traditional aspects of the calendar that could continue, as well as there are opportunities that occur in every calendar that we can and that at a later date I may be asking the community or the committee to potentially take advantage of. For example, we have the opportunity to have the first day of school be for just those grades that are transitioning to a new school. So theoretically, we could have the first day of school be kindergarten, grade 6, and grade 9, and have those and have the faculty and staff run, or have the first day of school be that orientation, be that transition in terms of so that's something that we are conversations I'm starting to have with the administrative team, as well as some of the bargaining units. Additionally, Rhode Island state law also allows a later start date for kindergarten, as long as those later dates are used for screenings. This is something that I think we should definitely look into. Currently, our case screenings tend to happen or need to be scheduled with registrations. This could have we could have our case screenings then essentially happening in February, with school not starting until August, September. So there are districts that do take advantage, and depending on the size of the district, to not only utilize that as a transition day, but also use the first few days of schools so that K teachers, as well as related service providers, can do case screenings and then set the class rosters prior to or after the rest of the district starts. And then last but not least, this has become more prevalent, although still fairly rare. There is also, with the change in Rhode Island general law, or excuse me, the regulations, that still allows the banking of minutes. So going beyond 330 instructional minutes in order to bank those minutes in order to not have to make up a snow day, or in order to have professional development. Or to use that time. In some cases, we do this already, as well as for districts, if one had a appetite in order to do early release days, let's say for professional development or for more parent-teacher conferences. Those are things that do exist. However, there is a timeline for those decisions, as those do need to go before RIDE for approval if we're going to take a look at any of those measures. So again, I bring this before you to show some of the highlights, as well as some of the events that are scheduled and that are predetermined. There are benefits more benefits to stay closely aligned to the RIDE calendar, especially as we think about faculty and staff. Once, if we were to start deviating, or if when districts start saying, well, we're going to take a different week for April vacation because for whatever reason, we then, for folks who reside in other communities, that puts on a pretty heavy burden onto them. So I've been part of, in former lives, we've been part of communities. Hey, why don't we do what Massachusetts is doing and go on break with them? Or let's go with Connecticut. Each one, again, does have hidden costs and not so hidden costs. So I wanted to just bring this to your attention, as well as get any early input from people in terms of things. But I am pleased to report that, again, if we were to stick with what is a fairly traditional calendar, we will be able to, I believe, or I'm confident, to start before Labor Day, preserve not only April, but also February break, as well as end before Juneteenth. That's my expectation.
Couple questions first. So how many instructional minutes per day do we have right now?
It's going to vary by school. So you've got additional instructional minutes here at the high school. But that is accounted for by the common planning time that the early release on Friday takes care of.
And then I like the idea of what I like about the idea of the delayed kindergarten is what you said about arranging those classes in a way that's going to be helpful for the teachers and just to especially important, I think, at that age, then to be arranged properly. I'm a little concerned about just thinking about families and how things like summer camp and daycare are structured around our school calendar. So, camps are over, I do have to take 3 days off of work at the beginning of school year because we're starting school late, especially if I've got maybe an older kid in 3rd grade and my kindergartner is still home because we're doing assessments for those first few days. And there's some families for whom that's a real struggle because they might not have a place to go because I can't get my kid into a daycare for just 3 days.
Thank you. That be sure to take that into consideration.
I mean, we typically, I know you will have a discussion with the bargaining unit about this. We typically, it's their working calendar, and so we typically defer to them. I will just call out, like right off the top, I see this calendar does not include the November 26th date. That has always been something that our bargaining unit petitions for. We respect that. But that immediately pops us out to the 20th, right? So there will be, I appreciate your optimism, but I'm sure there will be some good discussions about it. I look forward to what you come to us with, but like I said, we typically try to look at the whole picture. And again, I know the bargaining unit does as well. So, but just kind of keeping little nuances that South Kingstown's notoriously implemented, and just kind of keeping those in mind, and maybe having a little more push and pull with the bargaining unit about what makes logical sense of which day is more important to have off, type of conversation. So.
And I just want to jump in on that point real quick. Another one I don't see on here that we typically have off is Good Friday. I don't see that on here at all. I wasn't sure if I was missing it, but that is typically a day that we've had off in this district as well.
Again, this is just as a point of clarity for those in the community as well. This is the RIDE promulgated version. Again, there's no start date, there's no end date on here. Ultimately, this is the recommended canvas in terms of certain things that are out there. In prior years, RIDE has missed some things. But conversely, so we've looked into some of those, such as Good Friday, which I believe is the 3rd of I think it's the 10th this year. So those things will be accounted for. So this in no way, shape, or form is representative of a calendar or calendars that will come before you at future meetings. This is just the template that we can both, put in our wants and needs.
So understanding that this is a draft coming from RIDE, on this particular calendar, it does have the observance of the 2 Jewish holidays. And in the past, I think we may have had one on. And what was happening, because that was not a day out of school for the district as a whole. Those Jewish students were given that day, they could take that day off and it would not be counted towards them as an absence. Would we follow that and follow this drafted calendar to include that in there?
I intend to put out multiple versions or different iterations of the calendar for the committee to consider moving forward. It will come down to then getting towards certain priorities and or implementing certain opportunities. So the more time that we want, so as the community and the faculty and staff starting after Labor Day and ending before Juneteenth, we're squeezing ourselves in there. And so the more days that we want to get taken care of, the more pressure that it would then become for us to add and or use those additional instructional minutes. So to go beyond the 3:30 so it can be done.
No, I'm not asking you to make it a official
Oh.
school holiday.
No, I understand.
I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're honoring
Yeah.
our Jewish students and their families by at least having
It's-
the observance
Yes.
as it is presented in the RIDE calendar, because my recollection from our multiple calendars that we have looked over and potentially approved and then amended and over and over and over again as you speak to. That when we get to whatever calendar comes for us to be approved, I would like to see that. That's
Thank you. And I believe that is in our current iteration of of this year's calendar, and as such, is something that can be accommodated.
I would just like to say thank you to Paula for bringing that forward. And certainly second that, and as opposed to could be and needs to be.
If we do those at banking of minutes, is that something we have to discuss with our bargaining units?
Yes, that is something that we would need to discuss with those with the bargaining units, depending on how certain things are done, as well as the time available to folks. But yes, that generally we would need to enter into a memorandum of agreement with all of, or at the very least, our teacher and paraprofessional bargaining.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, along the same lines as on, I was noticing the notes here at the bottom of the second page talking about the total time being 1,080 school hours, and it seems like there's room to have longer and or shorter days as long as they all add up to 1,080 at some point. So I do want to also entertain the possibility of potentially lengthening the day in some places. I know there's financial implications to that and bargaining unit implications to that as well. But it's something I think we need to consider as well, because that really puts us in a box between Labor Day and Juneteenth is very, very tight. And as we saw this year, snow days could push us beyond Juneteenth into the following week. And I know that's when summer camps start going, is like that week after Juneteenth, that third week of June. So it does make it difficult. So whatever other possibilities we have, I would like to consider those, at least see what the implications might look like. May not be feasible or realistic, but is something, I'd like to at least keep open on the table.
one more thing. I just, in honor of Melissa Boyd, I looked up our policy 8415, which specifies that a student being absent for a religious holiday is an excused absence. So it's built into our policy no matter what the calendar is.
So, I just want to, and others, Kate, you may remember this, it goes back quite a while, but there was a time, one year, where they decided not to have any religious holidays on the calendar, but students would be excused and teachers would be excused. And there was no problem with the Jewish holiday. We are not a big Jewish community, and it seems equitable. However, there was a problem with Good Friday because so many teachers considered it a religious holiday that with religious meaning that they wanted to not work that day. And so that calendar didn't work. So I just want to relay that because in many years, the week of April vacation or not, well, spring break vacation aligns with the Easter holiday, and Good Friday is just part of that week. And that's wonderful when that matches. But I just want to caution you that, we do have a lot of people of the Christian faith in the community that where Good Friday does mean something. And that I just want to make sure, maybe especially talk with that about the teachers union. You remember that, Michael? So yeah, we don't want to forget the lessons we've learned in the past. So just a little caution there. I don't know if it's possible to move an April vacation to align or not, but I do think that's also important to remember.
I just want to point out, I looked it up, the Good Friday in 2026 is the 3rd. So that'd be a significant move for the vacation, probably a little more than we could. Yeah, that's probably a little more than we could handle. And I agreed with the sentiment of not having religious holidays, but I also heard from, Kate and I think others that we had problems with attendance on some of those days. So so I think for historical reasons and it's obviously community reasons, we probably want to keep, definitely want to keep that in the
It's something
the
that
mix.
in creating other calendars as well as thinking about this one that I've looked into and remember in terms of some of our neighboring districts as well, that was also in many cases paired up with also the shortening of a February vacation. There was that push and where many, I think a third of the districts in the state shortened February, tried to go to President's Day, and then made that Good Friday decision as well. I think there were other districts that were also in different bargaining unit agreements at the time or lack thereof in larger communities that then made the news, I believe, where the district needed to shut down because they could not attain that many subs. So rest assured, I'm cognizant of that history and will look to and will not recommend something that I do not believe has the support of those who do the hard work every single day here in the district.
Yeah, I think that's obviously the biggest driver is it's their work week. It's their work schedule. It's not mine, it's theirs.
Yep.
And then, we were a district that shortened February vacation. We made it a 4-day weekend. We had the Friday and the Monday off. And I remember it vividly because I personally liked it, but again, it was my personal opinion, isn't necessarily what's reflected by the masses. And that was in 2019, because then in 2020, everything shifted and it was basically mandated you were following the ride. And then it just kind of never went away from there because I think people liked having it. So, but again, I defer to you in the conversation with the teachers union and the bargaining units to sort out and bring to us what seems like the most logical.
May not make the most sense, but I know some communities this year had in other states had the 2nd off also and came back on the 3rd of January for that one Friday. just another possibility there. We could come back on that second. Maybe not my preference, but just if we're struggling to find a day, that could be a potential.
Got it.
All right.
We
So-
will,
Just make it all work.
I, it's, I'm sorry, but I'll put it out there. Challenge accepted. I'm sorry. I love, there's something about school calendars. Again, how to design teaching and learning to maximize, we maximize our time with, dedicated caring adults and kids and making it all work with families is we will, we'll make.
And no snow days. We don't want to have to take those.
Now we've done it. So we'll see how we get through this one, but thank you.
All
Thank you for the input and guidance, and I look forward and
Thank you for your understanding.
this was just for your and the community so that they know in terms of the canvas, if you will, the of what we've got to work with, and that process now armed with community input as well as stakeholder input, with the exception of students right now, that we'll be able to use that to begin crafting drafts for next year's calendar.
Thank you. That it is helpful to see what RIDE is putting out there. So thanks. All right, and that will bring us to item F, discussion action, Augusta Hazard Scholarship, review of school year 2025 to 2026 application. So Michelle, did you want to speak on that?
This is for the 2024-25. This is, I know what it says, but it's.
Okay, hold on
I
a
know
sec.
what it says, but it's supposed to be for the current applications that are going to go out to kids this year. It's 24-25. Okay. Yeah, so we have to.
Is this, yeah, I mean, this could be like considered a scrivener's error. I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Just because, I mean, it's tight, it's.
Yes. Because the due date is this, if you look at item 3, it says the due date for the applications is March 1st, 2025. So it aligns to the 24-25 school year, so we can still. Yes, in order to move forward with this, we need school committee approval. So this is the application with little or no changes over the past 6 or 8 years, where we the applications are presented to the school committee members that serve on the scholarship committee with no names or addresses on them. We are looking for evidence that the students work in the community, do community service and school community service type involvement, and where they're applying to as far as a college goes, and where they've been accepted, and do they have a plan to attend that college or university. And then we ask them to attach an essay of 150 to 500 words describing their day as a student. And we look at their transcript and make the decision based on that. This year, we will not have any renewals because when we changed the application process, we did away with renewals. And I just need the school committee's approval on this application as is, or if you have any changes that you would like to see made to it before it goes out to the students.
So because it says on the first page, the wrong dates, I think it would be prudent to amend it.
Yes, it will have to be amended to be the 2024 to 2025 school year. The rest of it should be fine because the deadlines
Yep.
for the applications are listed through March 1st.
And the other deadlines also are correct. So so we just need to amend on the title page.
Yes,
I'll make a motion to accept the scholarship application with the correction that the school year be changed to 2024 to 2025.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, that passes. Okay, that will bring us to discussion action, personnel job performance, contract renewal, executive assistant to the superintendent and school committee.
I'll make a motion
I'd
to
like
approve.
to. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract renewal for the executive assistant to the superintendent and school committee as presented.
Again,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Nope.
what about,
Reopen
oh,
community.
we got
We-
reopen
yeah.
community comment for,
We are going to open
Comment.
community comment.
She
And
tried,
while
Doral.
Doral makes his
She
way out
tried.
here, I'm gonna read this real quick. A regular business meeting of the school committee includes a public comment period of up to 30 minutes. The purpose of the community comments is to provide an opportunity for members of the public to make a statement regarding agenda items or matters of general policy for which the committee has responsibility or jurisdiction. During the regular business meetings, members of the public shall be invited to address the school committee given the following protocol. Speakers shall introduce themselves. Speakers shall limit their individual comments to 3 minutes. Speakers' comments shall be brief and focused on the current agenda items. Speakers are encouraged to write down their thoughts before approaching the committee. Community comment is not a time to engage in a question and answer dialogue. Groups, organizations are encouraged to appoint a spokesperson. Individuals are welcome to submit and add comments in writing. Individuals may address the community, the committee only once during community comments. Are you ready, Doral?
Yes, good evening. My name is Doral Beasley, and I actually have nothing to say tonight. Plus, I'm really hungry, so let's go home.
So
Go-
I'll go
go,
back
Pearl.
to, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Meeting adjourned.